They looked me straight in the eye and said, "Sign this resignation letter, or your employment ends immediately." Those were their exact words. After 21 years of unwavering loyalty, I was given just 30 minutes to make a life-altering decision. I chose to resign, but on my terms. I wrote my own version, just one sentence, carefully chosen, deliberate. 5 days later at exactly 7:43 a.m. their corporate lawyer called me. His voice was tense, almost shaky. "Ms. Bennett, we need to talk about the exact wording of your resignation letter." When I calmly explained what that sentence truly meant, Evan Marshall, the company's CFO, went completely quiet. Before I go any further, make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to know just how far this story has traveled. Now, let me take you back to the very beginning. Let me explain how I ended up sitting in that conference room at 4:17 p.m. on a Friday afternoon in October 2025, watching 4 top executives slowly realize they had made a devastating mistake, one that would strip them of everything they believed they had secured. My name is Lyra Bennett, and I'm 46 years old. For over 2 decades, I served as the Senior Director of Global Operations at Orion Tech Solutions, a software company based in Boulder, Colorado, known for developing enterprise resource planning systems for manufacturing firms. I joined the company in July 2004 as a junior operations analyst, fresh out of graduate school with an MBA from Rocky Mountain University. My starting salary was $42,000 a year, and I lived in a tiny studio apartment that consumed more than half of my monthly paycheck. By October 2025, my total annual compensation had grown to $192,000, not including quarterly bonuses, full benefits, and stock options accumulated over 20 years. I led a team of 41 professionals spread across 3 continents. My division alone generated $63 million in yearly revenue. I wasn't just an employee with a senior title. I was the institutional memory of the company. When executives forgot the background of a critical client relationship, they called me. When finance needed archived data from 2007 that no longer existed in active systems, I provided it. When board members questioned why certain operational processes were in place, I was the one with the answers. My email archives spanned 21 years, every message categorized, every thread preserved. I managed vendor relationships that existed long before most of the current employees had even been hired. I understood the nuances of contract negotiations that took place before half of our leadership team had finished college. For 21 years, I was essential to the company's survival, until one day I was. The trouble didn't begin in October. It started 8 months earlier. In February 2025, Orion Tech Solutions was acquired by Apex Global Group, a sprawling conglomerate valued at $11.4 billion. Their business model was simple and ruthless: acquire mid-sized tech firms, remove high-cost senior employees, and replace them with inexperienced recent graduates willing to work for far less and unlikely to challenge authority. I had seen this exact strategy devastate 3 competing companies in our industry over the previous 18 months. I recognized the pattern immediately. I knew exactly what was about to happen. Their acquisition strategy never changed. First came the comforting speeches about growth, stability, and business as usual. Then, quietly and methodically, anyone earning more than $130,000 a year was removed. Their replacements were newly graduated employees earning $68,000, talented perhaps, but inexperienced enough not to realize how badly they were being taken advantage of. The acquisition officially closed on February 14, 2025. Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. The new leadership team arrived on February 22nd. Our new CEO was Nathan Reed, officially Nathan Reed. He was 35 years old, armed with a Yale MBA, and previously held an executive role at a startup that spectacularly burned through $40 million in venture capital before collapsing. He had absolutely no hands-on experience running enterprise-level software operations. The CFO was Evan Marshall, 33 years old. Formerly a senior consultant at Sterling & Co., he was exceptionally sharp with financial projections and complex spreadsheets, but entirely disconnected from the realities of day-to-day business operations. Then there was Marcus Hale, the new SUO, 37 years old. He had spent exactly 18 months at Apex Global Group and believed that made him an expert on software companies. His confidence stemmed from having overseen one for 8 months, right before it failed completely. On March 3rd at exactly 10:00 a.m., they scheduled a mandatory company-wide meeting. Nathan stood in our primary conference room, the very room I had personally designed when we relocated to this building back in 2013. I had selected every piece of furniture, negotiated every technology contract, and even approved the precise shade of grey on the walls. Standing there, he delivered the same polished acquisition speech I had heard, almost word for word, at 3 other companies. "We're incredibly excited about this partnership," he said, smiling with a carefully practiced enthusiasm that convinced no one who had real corporate experience. "Nothing fundamental is going to change. We truly appreciate everything you bring to this company. Your roles are completely secure. Together, we're going to reach levels of success we've never seen before." They emphasized that Apex Global Group had acquired Orion Tech Solutions because of its people, the talent, the experience, the culture, and promised they were fully committed to protecting that expertise. I had heard that speech before, word for word, delivered with the same polished warmth and manufactured sincerity. I knew what it really meant. When executives say nothing will change, it's a guarantee that everything is about to change rapidly and brutally. That same night at exactly 10:23 p.m., I opened my laptop at my dining room table. I poured myself a glass of red wine and began updating my resume. But I didn't stop there. I also started doing something else, something my father had taught me during his 32 years as a construction foreman who spent his career fighting for workers' rights. I started documenting everything. Every email exchange. Every process document. Every contract clause. Every vendor agreement. Every client relationship detail. Every policy. Every procedure. Every conversation that felt even remotely important. I backed all of it up to 3 separate encrypted external hard drives, stored safely at home, protected by military-grade encryption software. I had learned this lesson the hard way by watching other companies go through acquisitions like this. Once they decide to terminate you, they lock you out of every system immediately. Overnight, years of contributions vanish, along with any proof of your value or leverage to negotiate fair terms. The layoffs began in March, exactly 4 weeks after the acquisition finalized. On March 24th at 8:47 a.m., they terminated 15 employees. Every single one of them was over 42 years old. Every single one earned more than $115,000 a year. Every single one had decades of experience. Within 6 weeks, they were replaced by recent college graduates earning less than half the salary. Human Resources labeled it organizational realignment. I called it what it was: systematic age discrimination and wage theft. I kept that opinion to myself and continued documenting every termination, every replacement hire, every meeting where age or compensation was subtly referenced as a deciding factor. Nothing escaped my records. By April, their attention shifted toward me. At first, it was subtle. Meetings I'd attended for years suddenly disappeared from my calendar. On April 18th, there was a quarterly strategic planning session I had personally led for 9 consecutive years. Without explanation, my invitation was cancelled. When I asked Nathan Reed directly why I had been excluded, he brushed it off with practiced indifference. "Oh, we're just introducing fresh perspectives into that process," he said casually. "But we truly appreciate everything you've contributed in the past." 11 days later, on April 29th, 4 of my core responsibilities were reassigned to a 27-year-old manager named Tyler Brooks. Tyler had been with the company for exactly 9 months. He had no understanding of our legacy systems, no knowledge of the long-standing vendor relationships I had spent years building, no awareness of the operational landmines I had learned to navigate through experience. And yet, piece by piece, my role was being dismantled. On May 15th, during a department-wide meeting with my entire team in attendance, they openly challenged my judgment. Subtle at first, then unmistakable. Comments were made suggesting I was no longer aligned with modern operational strategies, implying I had fallen behind the times. It was classic corporate intimidation. The goal was simple: make me uncomfortable enough to resign voluntarily so they wouldn't have to provide proper severance. But I didn't quit. I showed up every single day. I did my job and I did it flawlessly. And I documented everything. Every dismissive remark. Every meeting I was excluded from. Every time my authority was undermined. Every instance of thinly veiled disrespect. My employment record was immaculate. 21 years of exceptional performance reviews. Not a single disciplinary action. Multiple company awards, Operations Excellence in 2017, Leadership Innovation in 2019, and the Distinguished Service Award in 2022. They couldn't fire me for cause. And they knew it. So on June 27th, they tried something else. Evan Marshall called me into his office at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. A terrible sign. Friday meetings always are. He spoke carefully, rehearsed. "Laura, we're restructuring operations to better align with Apex Global Group's global framework," he said. "As part of that, we're eliminating your current position and introducing a new role, Senior Operations Coordinator." He paused. "You're welcome to apply for it," he continued, "but the compensation will be adjusted." Adjusted was an understatement. The new salary, $94,000 annually. I had been earning $192,000, not including substantial bonuses. A $98,000 pay cut for nearly identical responsibilities under a slightly altered title. It was textbook constructive dismissal, dressed up as strategic restructuring. I smiled politely. "I'll need some time to consider this," I said. I went straight home and made a phone call I'd been preparing for months. I contacted Rebecca Collins, an employment attorney I had retained back in April, once the warning signs became impossible to ignore. Rebecca had 28 years of experience in employment law, with deep expertise in wrongful termination and age discrimination cases. She had represented more than 180 employees against large corporations and maintained an 81% success rate. Her rate was $450 an hour. By that point, I had already paid her $4,050 for 9 consultations. When I explained the situation, she didn't hesitate. "They're trying to force you out," she said calmly. "That pay reduction is classic constructive dismissal. Do not accept it under any circumstances." Then she added, "Wait, let them make the next move and document everything." So I waited. Exactly 38 days. On August 4th at 3:15 p.m. I received the message I'd been expecting. An email from Nathan Reed's executive assistant. "Mr. Reed would like to meet with you in Conference Room C at 3:15 p.m. today. Please make yourself available immediately." Conference Room C. Not his office. Which meant one thing. Witnesses. That confirmed it. This wasn't a casual discussion. This was formal. This was termination. Before leaving my office, I printed the resignation letter, the one Rebecca Collins and I had drafted 4 weeks earlier after multiple revisions. I folded it neatly and slipped it into the inside pocket of my jacket. Then I walked to Conference Room C. At exactly 3:15 p.m. they were already there. Nathan Reed, Evan Marshall, Marcus Hale and Danielle Price from Human Resources sat lined up along one side of the long mahogany table, like a review panel passing judgment. Leather portfolios lay open in front of them. 4 identical pens, 4 identical expressions of rehearsed concern. Nathan gestured toward the single chair opposite them. The isolation chair. The accused seat. I sat down without hesitation. I had rehearsed this moment in my head at least 60 times. Laura, thank you for making time to meet with us, Nathan began, his tone carefully pleasant. We need to talk about your future with Orion Tech Solutions. Translation, you're being let go. As you know, he continued, we've been restructuring to better align with Apex Global Group's operational framework. After careful review, we've made some difficult decisions regarding our leadership structure. Translation, we've decided to replace you. After extensive consideration, he concluded, we've chosen to move in a different direction with the operations role. I said nothing. I waited. Rebecca had drilled this into me repeatedly. Let them speak. Let them expose themselves. Stay calm. Observe everything. Evan leaned forward next, his voice coated in artificial empathy. This is obviously a challenging moment, Laura. We truly respect your years of service, he said. But we believe it's in everyone's best interest, including yours, for you to explore opportunities elsewhere. Then he slid a manila folder across the polished table toward me. We are prepared to offer you two options. Inside the folder were two documents, both fully prepared, signatures missing, waiting only for my compliance. Option 1, Evan continued, you submit your resignation effective immediately. In exchange, we'll provide 3 weeks of severance pay. 3 weeks, that comes to $11,077, he added, plus your accrued vacation time. We'll also provide a neutral reference, a clean transition, minimal complications, you leave with your dignity intact. 3 weeks of severance after 21 years. The insult was deliberate. Colorado law didn't require them to offer severance at all, and they knew it. They were betting I'd be too overwhelmed or afraid to challenge them. Option 2, Marcus Hale interjected, unable to hide the smugness in his voice. We proceed with termination due to restructuring. He paused. In that case, there would be no severance, no vacation payout, and we'd note in your personnel file that your position was eliminated due to redundancy. He smiled faintly, which may not reflect favorably for future employment. It was a threat. Clumsy, transparent, but unmistakable. Take the small payout, or we'll make things harder for you. I opened the folder fully. Inside was a pre-written resignation letter on official company letterhead. All it required was my signature at the bottom. The letter stated, I, Laura Bennett, hereby resign from my position as Senior Director of Global Operations at Orion Tech Solutions, effective immediately. I acknowledge receipt of 3 weeks of severance pay and accrued vacation time as full and final settlement, and I release Orion Tech Solutions and Apex Global Group from any and all claims arising from my employment or separation. It was a trap. If I signed that document, I would be surrendering every legal right I had: age discrimination, constructive dismissal, wrongful termination, all of it, in exchange for $11,077. I looked up at the four of them. Young, self-assured, completely convinced they had cornered me with no possible way out. Nathan glanced at his smartwatch, probably had dinner plans at 6. Evan wore a faint smirk, clearly enjoying the power dynamic. Marcus leaned back in his chair, relaxed, as if the outcome had already been decided. I thought about my father. He spent 32 years as a construction foreman, fighting relentlessly for workers' rights, often against companies far bigger and more powerful than he was. When I was 15 and got my first retail job, he taught me one lesson I never forgot. Never sign anything without reading it 3 times. And never let people in expensive suits intimidate you just because they hold impressive titles. You have rights, know them, use them. I'll resign, I said evenly. Instant relief washed across their faces. Nathan smiled openly. Excellent decision, Laura, very professional. If you could just sign right here. I'll write my own resignation letter, I interrupted. The smiles faltered. Well, Nathan said carefully, we've already prepared one that includes all the necessary legal. I'll write my own, I repeated, my tone firm. Unless you're planning to dictate the specific language I'm allowed to use in my personal resignation. Nathan hesitated. He couldn't force me to sign their letter without admitting the entire process was coercive. Finally, he nodded. Fine, write your own, we'll need it by end of business today, 5 p.m. You'll have it within an hour, I replied, standing up. I walked out of conference room C at 3:37 p.m., leaving them behind with their pre-written documents, their matching pens, and their premature sense of victory. Back in my office, I closed the door, locked it, opened my laptop. The truth was, I had already written my resignation letter 4 weeks earlier, during a sleepless night when I knew this confrontation was inevitable. I had crafted it with Rebecca Collins' guidance. We spent 6 hours on a video call analyzing every word, every comma, every possible legal implication. The letter was a single sentence, 42 words. I read it again, probably for the 75th time, then sent it to Rebecca via encrypted message. They've delivered the ultimatum. Resign or be terminated. Is this still our strategy? Her reply came in less than 2 minutes. Perfect timing, send it exactly as written, don't add anything, don't explain anything, just the one sentence, then wait. I printed the letter on Orion Tech Solutions letterhead, signed it using my full legal name in blue ink. Made 4 copies. 1 for human resources, 1 for my personal records, 1 for Rebecca, 1 for my safety deposit box. Then I walked back to conference room C. It was 4:17 p.m., exactly 40 minutes after I'd left. Nathan, Evan, Marcus and Danielle Price were still there. Coffee cups now sat in front of them. They looked relaxed, almost celebratory. They believed they had already won. I handed Nathan read the letter without saying a word. He skimmed it quickly, barely reading beyond the first line. Fine, he said dismissively. This is acceptable. HR will process your final compensation. I'll need all severance details in writing, I interrupted calmly. Exact amounts, payment timelines, and written confirmation of what's included. Evan Marshall rolled his eyes, that familiar, condescending gesture younger executives use when dealing with someone they believe is beneath them. 3 weeks' salary, he said impatiently. We already told you, that's $11,077, it'll be included in your final paycheck. And my accrued vacation time, I replied evenly. I have 142.5 hours. That's fine, he said, included. And my outstanding expense reimbursements, I continued. I submitted receipts totaling $4,287 from the client meetings in Boston last month. They haven't been processed yet. We'll include everything, Marcus Hale said dismissively, already standing up. You can go now. HR will contact you regarding the return of your laptop and access credentials. I left. At 4:24 p.m. on August 4, 2025, I walked out of conference room C for the final time. I returned to my office and packed my personal belongings into 3 cardboard boxes. Family photographs, a coffee mug from a conference in 2016, a desk plant my team gave me for my 20th anniversary, my favorite fountain pen, a gift from a mentor years earlier. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from my team asking what had happened. I didn't respond to a single one. Rebecca Collins had been very clear. Radio silence. No explanations. No clarifications. No responses until they figure it out themselves. I drove home at 5:04 p.m., set the boxes down in my living room, poured a glass of wine and waited. They figured it out 5 days later. Tuesday morning, August 9th, 7:43 a.m. My phone rang. Unknown number. Denver area code. I answered on the 4th ring. Laura Bennett speaking. Ms. Bennett, a voice said carefully, this is Michael Sterling, General Counsel for Apex Global Group. I need to discuss your resignation letter with you immediately. Are you available to speak? I set my coffee down and smiled. Here we go. Of course, Mr. Sterling, I replied pleasantly. How can I help you? There appears to be some confusion regarding the language you used in your resignation letter, he said. Specifically, the phrase effective upon receipt of complete settlement of all compensation, benefits, stock options, and other amounts owed under my employment agreement and applicable law. He paused. Can you clarify what you meant by that? I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet Rebecca and I had prepared. 63 tabs. Color-coded. Each line supported by documentation. Certainly, Mr. Sterling, I said calmly. It's quite straightforward. My resignation becomes effective only when I receive complete settlement of all amounts owed to me under my employment agreement and applicable Colorado law. I continued. Until that settlement is received in full, my resignation has not taken effect, which means I remain an employee of Orion Tech Solutions, with all associated rights, benefits, and legal protections. Silence. A long one. I could hear papers shifting. Muted voices whispering urgently in the background. I'm sorry, Michael finally said, his tone noticeably tighter. Could you repeat that? My resignation is conditional, I replied. It's effective upon receipt of complete settlement, meaning it is contingent upon that event occurring. That's basic contract law, I continued evenly. An action is effective upon another event only when the second event is completed. Until then, the first action does not occur. My resignation does not become effective until you pay me everything you legally owe me under my employment agreement and Colorado state law. Maury silence. Maury frantic movement on the other end. And what, he asked carefully, do you believe we owe you? I'm glad you asked, I said. Let me walk you through it. I pulled up the spreadsheet. 63 tabs. Thousands of hours of documentation. First, I began, my base salary through the effective date of resignation, $14,769.23. Second, accrued vacation time, 142.5 hours at my hourly rate of $92.31, totaling $13,154.18. Third, outstanding expense reimbursements, $4,287. Those three items total $32,210.41, I said evenly. But that's only the beginning. The beginning, Michael Sterling repeated, his voice rose slightly. What do you mean the beginning? Fourth, I continued calmly, my 2025 annual performance bonus. There was a pause. Section 6.2 of my employment agreement, signed March 7, 2018, guarantees an annual performance bonus equal to 80% of my base salary upon meeting operational targets. I didn't just meet those targets, I added, I exceeded them. Our operations generated $63 million in revenue this year, which is 14% above projections. The agreement states that the bonus is payable upon termination of employment for any reason. That bonus equals $153,600. I heard something drop on his end of the line. A pen. A cup. Maybe his jaw. Hold on, he said quickly. We'll need to review. Fifth, I continued, not slowing down, my stock options. I could practically hear his pulse accelerating. I hold 52,000 stock options, granted under my 2020 compensation package. Those options vest immediately upon a change of control. Apex Global Group's acquisition of Orion Tech Solutions triggered that provision. At the current market value of $22.18 per share, those options are worth $1,153,360. The silence this time was absolute. I imagined Michael frantically doing the math, his face growing redder with each digit. Sixth, I said, my severance package. I didn't rush, I let every word land. Section 8.4 of my employment agreement, which I can email to you immediately, states that if my employment is terminated without cause, or if I resign for good reason within 24 months of a change of control, I am entitled to 20 months of salary continuation. plus continued benefits. That totals $320,000 in salary, plus approximately $31,500 in health insurance premiums and additional benefits. There was a sharp inhale on the line. "You're saying," he said slowly, "that we owe you over $1.6 million. $1,690,670.41, to be precise," I replied pleasantly. "Plus interest accruing at the statutory rate of 8% annually, per Colorado Revised Statute Section 1321-101, calculated from August 4th. I continued, "And since my resignation has not yet become effective, I am still technically employed. That means I am still accruing salary at my daily rate of $738.46. I remain covered by company health insurance. I am still entitled to all employee benefits and protections, including my office, email access, corporate credit card, parking space, and participation in the 401(k) matching program." "This is absurd," he snapped. "You can't." "Actually, Mr. Sterling," I interrupted calmly, "I can, and I did. I consulted with Rebecca Collins at Collins Employment Law. You may be familiar with her. She has argued 4 employment contract interpretation cases before the Colorado Supreme Court, and won all 4. She reviewed my resignation letter extensively and confirmed that it is legally sound. Conditional resignations are fully lawful in Colorado and have been upheld repeatedly in case law. You forced me to choose between resigning or being terminated. I chose resignation, but I made it conditional upon receiving everything I am legally owed. But you accepted my resignation without reading it carefully. That was your mistake, not mine. We'll fight this in court, he said tightly. You absolutely should, I replied, still pleasant. Please do. Hire the best attorneys, spend 6 figures on litigation. Because I have 21 years of documentation demonstrating systematic age discrimination, constructive dismissal, and wrongful termination. I have emails from Nathan Reed, dated May 8th, explicitly discussing the need to eliminate expensive older employees to improve cost structure. I have legally obtained recordings, under Colorado's one-party consent law, of meetings where Evan Marshall discussed replacing me with younger talent who won't question decisions. I have text messages from Marcus Hale, dated June 22nd, referring to me as a relic who can't adapt to modern business practices. All admissible, all time-stamped, all securely backed up in multiple locations. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was devastating. It was the sound of a corporate attorney realizing his clients had just handed a former employee a winning lottery ticket. Or, I continued evenly, you can simply pay me what you legally owe under my employment agreement. I'll sign a properly drafted release with mutual non-disparagement clauses, and we can all move on. Your choice, Mr. Sterling. I paused, then added calmly, but you should know that statutory interest continues to accrue every day you delay, and every day my resignation hasn't taken effect, I remain an employee earning my daily salary. The meter is running. He ended the call without saying goodbye. I poured myself another cup of coffee and waited. 3 hours and 42 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Evan Marshall. He was anything but calm. What the hell did you do? He shouted before I could even say hello. I resigned, I replied evenly, just as you asked. You tricked us, he snapped. You deliberately wrote that resignation to trap us. I wrote a legally valid resignation letter, I said calmly. You accepted it without reading it carefully. There were 4 people in that room, including someone from Human Resources, and none of you noticed that my resignation was conditional. How exactly is that my fault? The board is furious, he continued. Nathan is getting calls from Apex headquarters. The CEO in New York wants to know why we're suddenly on the hook for $1.6 million to a terminated employee. I haven't been terminated, Evan, I corrected him. That's the entire point. My resignation hasn't become effective, I'm still employed. We're not paying you a single dollar of that bonus or those stock options, he snapped. Then don't, I said pleasantly. Keep me employed. Continue paying my salary, $14,769.23 per pay period. Keep me on the health insurance plan at $2,625 per month. Continue matching my 401k contributions. Oh, and I'll need my office access restored, along with my email and corporate credit card. And actually, I added, since you've already reassigned my responsibilities, I'm effectively being paid to do nothing. I'm completely fine with that. I can wait as long as you'd like. He was sputtering now, unable to string together a sentence. Will sue you for. For what, Evan? I asked calmly. For drafting a resignation letter. For using conditional language in a legal document. For knowing my rights under my employment contract. Good luck with that lawsuit. But while you're considering litigation, I continued, you should know I've already filed a charge with the EEOC for age discrimination. I have documentation showing 23 employees over the age of 40 were terminated and replaced by significantly younger workers earning far less. I have emails and legally obtained recordings demonstrating discriminatory intent. That investigation will take months, possibly years. And the longer this drags on, the more documentation I gather, and the larger the damages become. He hung up on me. 28 minutes later, my work email access was restored. Someone inside the company had panicked and reactivated it, almost certainly after a lawyer reminded them that I was technically still an employee and that locking me out could create additional legal exposure. I logged in immediately. Waiting in my inbox was an internal email chain between Nathan Reed, Evan Marshall, Marcus Hale, Michael Sterling, and 4 additional Apex Global Group attorneys. The subject line read, Urgent, Bennett resignation, legal exposure. They had forwarded my resignation letter to 6 separate employment law firms. All 6 reached the same conclusion. Conditional resignation. Legally valid. Fully enforceable. Extremely expensive mistake. One attorney's response stood out in particular, and it was deeply satisfying. One attorney's email was brutally direct. You accepted a conditional resignation without recognizing it was conditional. She is correct regarding the bonus, the stock options, and the severance provisions. You are liable for the full amount unless you choose to litigate, and risk substantially greater damages related to age discrimination and wrongful termination. My strong recommendation is immediate settlement. At 6:18 p.m., Michael Sterling called again. Ms. Bennett, he said carefully, Apex Global Group would like to discuss a settlement to resolve this matter quickly and amicably. I'm listening. We're prepared to offer $950,000 as a full and final settlement of all claims, he said. That includes salary, accrued vacation, expenses, bonus, options, and severance. Take it or leave it. I'll leave it, I replied without hesitation. Thank you. There was a pause. As I've already explained, I continued, you owe me $1,690,670.41 at minimum under my employment agreement. If you choose not to pay, I remain employed indefinitely and will file suit. Discovery should be enlightening. I have 21 years of internal documentation. Ms. Bennett, he said, his tone tightening, please be reasonable. I am being reasonable, Mr. Sterling, I replied calmly. I'm asking for exactly what my contract guarantees, nothing more, nothing less. You're the ones who attempted to force me out with 3 weeks of severance after 21 years. That was not reasonable. There was a brief silence. $1.2 million, he said. Final offer, but you have to decide right now. $1,690,670.41, I countered immediately. Plus $63,450 in attorney's fees. Rebecca Collins has been exceptionally busy on my behalf. I'll need payment within 20 business days, via wire transfer. And I'll require a signed letter of recommendation from Nathan Reed, on company letterhead, stating that I was an exemplary employee who made significant contributions to Orion Tech Solutions, success. I also want a mutual non-disparagement clause. There was a sharp exhale. Mr. Reed won't agree to that, he said flatly. Then I remain employed, I replied, and I file suit tomorrow morning. Your choice, Mr. Sterling. I paused, then added gently. And just so we're clear, every day you delay costs you an additional $738.46 in salary, plus benefits plus accruing statutory interest. The clock is still running. And once I file suit, I said, calm and measured, that settlement number will include emotional distress damages, punitive damages for age discrimination, and attorney's fees that will be substantially higher. The longer you wait, the higher the cost. He called back at 8:47 p.m. Deal, he said tersely. We'll wire the funds within 20 business days. You'll receive the letter of recommendation by Friday. Our attorneys will send the settlement agreement for your review by tomorrow afternoon. On September 3, 2025 at 1:18 p.m. I received the wire transfer, $1,754,120.41. The full settlement, including attorney fees. That same day, FedEx delivered a signed letter of recommendation on Apex Global Group letterhead. Nathan Reed's signature was at the bottom, praising my 21 years of exemplary service, operational excellence, and invaluable contributions to Orion Tech Solutions' success. I seriously doubted he had written a single word himself. Rebecca Collins reviewed the settlement agreement, all 52 pages of it, standard release language, mutual non-disparagement clauses, and confidentiality provisions covering the settlement terms. I signed it on September 6th. My resignation officially became effective that day at 3:22 p.m. I was no longer an employee of Orion Tech Solutions. I had successfully negotiated a $1.75 million severance package from a company that had tried to force me out with $11,077. The epilogue was deeply satisfying. Nathan Reed lasted exactly 7 more months at Orion before being terminated in April 2026 for missing quarterly targets by 31%. Apparently, firing all your experienced employees and replacing them with people who had no idea how anything worked does not improve operations. Who could have guessed? Evan Marshall resigned in March 2026, citing irreconcilable differences with corporate leadership. The irony was not lost on me. Marcus Hale is still there, managing a company that is hemorrhaging clients because nobody remembers how to maintain the legacy systems, who the critical vendor contacts are, or why certain processes exist in the first place. 4 of my former team members reached out for guidance after receiving similar ultimatums. I connected all of them with Rebecca Collins. 3 have successfully negotiated 6-figure settlements. The 4th remains employed, while the company calculates how costly it will actually be to honor her contractual entitlements. As for me, I am semi-retired at 46, enjoying the freedom earned after 21 years of dedication, strategy, and persistence. I do occasional consulting for medium-sized companies, charging $575 per hour, helping them optimize operations and improve processes. But my specialty has become career defense planning, teaching experienced employees how to document everything, understand their contracts, and protect themselves when management attempts to push them out. Over the past year, 19 people have contacted me, all facing similar situations, all being systematically forced out by companies that view experienced staff as costly liabilities rather than valuable assets. I teach them what my father taught me. Know your rights, document everything, never let anyone in a suit intimidate you just because they have a fancy title. The lesson here isn't about being vindictive or greedy. It's about understanding that after decades of service, when you've built systems, nurtured relationships, and accumulated institutional knowledge, your value cannot be easily replaced. And when a company tries to discard that value for pennies on the dollar, you have every right to demand exactly what you are legally owed. Never sign anything without reading it 3 times. Never assume corporate executives are smarter than you. They are often just more confident and better dressed. Never underestimate someone with decades of experience and competent legal counsel. Always know what your employment contract actually says, not what you think it says, not what someone told you it says, but what it actually says. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's simply getting exactly what you are owed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's simply getting exactly what you are owed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share and subscribe.